welcome to my channel. Welcome to today's video. Today's video is going to be another review on one of the Lisa Eldridge palettes. So today is going to be all about the Cinnabar palette, which is the more just warm tone palette here. I did a overview video on all 5 palettes with just swatches and one eye look. So I will link that video above. And then afterwards, I've been going over in more detail on just each of the palettes individually. So you can check out some of those videos so far. This is 4 out of the 5. And in these videos, we'll still be going over swatches, the finishes, some details of this palette, but instead I will be doing 3 eye looks, pulling you in a little bit closer, and then going over my final thoughts on if I think this specific palette is worth it rather than overall all of the palettes. So if that sounds good to you, make sure you give this video a thumbs up and subscribe. Stick around if you haven't yet. But with all that, let's get started talking about the details of this palette. I'm going to try and breeze through this really fast because odds are if you've been interested in these palettes, you already know a little bit about them. They do retail for $68 US each, and it comes with 6 shades and there's 5 different palettes. So this is the Cinnabar palette. Let me hold it upright so you can kind of just see it here. And then Lisa Eldridge, she has 6 finishes, 6 formulas, and each palette has a various amount. So this palette specifically, I'm gonna throw up a swatch photo here. This palette has 4 of the finishes, 2 seamless mattes, 1 velvet, which is kind of like her creamy matte formula. It has 2 metallics and 1 top coat. So just going through top to bottom here, we have Raw Sienna, which is a seamless matte, Bronzite, which is a metallic, Fired Earth, which is a seamless matte, Lost Summer, which is a metallic, Deep Ochre, which is a velvet, and then Ritual, which is a top coat. I have been testing out these palettes. As I mentioned, this is going to be my 4th one. Out of the 3 that I've tried so far, 2 I've been in love with, and 1 was a dud. That's the one that I tried yesterday. So I'm gonna try and go into this one with an open mind because yesterday's review that I did, I think that video will have already been up, but it kind of left a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth because I was riding on such a high for those first 2 palettes, and then the Muse palette just really disappointed me. So I'm hoping this one goes better today. It's not really my preferred color story. I do gravitate a little bit more towards warm tones, but I wanted to pick this up. I think it goes great with my sweater here, and we're gonna try and get some looks out of this. So I am going to zoom you in a little bit closer, and we're just gonna get started playing with this palette and seeing how this formula compares to her other ones. Let's just get started with the looks here. So I think for the first look, kind of just gonna do a brown smoky eye. What I've discovered with these palettes is less is more. Even though there's 6 shades, you don't really wanna be building shades on top of each other too much. It's more for the versatility in the amount of looks you can get. So I'm gonna apply this all over the lid. This is a seamless matte here, and then this metallic on top. And we'll see if I just need to deepen it up, add some depth with these other 2. So I'm just gonna go in with a fluffy brush and start applying this kind of just all over the lid haphazardly. I will probably just smooth out the edges later. So right now I'm just laying down a base. It doesn't have to be too perfect here. There we go. I'm quite actually liking this color. It's not pulling as warm as I thought it was. So I'm gonna go in with that top middle shade, that metallic, and I'm just gonna go in with my finger here, apply this all over the lid. And I do think I forgot to mention this in my details. These palettes are all interchangeable. You can swap out any of the shades, and she does sell singles online, which I think is great. So that way, if you go through a shade faster than another one, you don't have to buy a whole new palette. You can just buy that shade that you ran through. This is going much better than last time for the Muse palette. I don't know what it is. I really just think I got a bad palette for that one. I'm gonna go in with a smaller brush and go into this medium shade here. This is a velvet. We're gonna see how this builds because in my experience, the velvets don't really build on top of colors too much, but usually that's a velvet on velvet. With the seamless matte, maybe it'll be a little bit better. just kind of add some depth to the crease here. Just a little bit. Perfect. Gonna go back in with that lightest shade. And now we're gonna blend out the edges. Just bring it up. I have like a lot of lid space from my brow to here, but I don't have like large eyes. So a lot of the times I try to bring it up as much as I can without making it look too weird. I am not a makeup artist by any means. This is all trial and error, so I don't know if that's the correct technique, but that's just what I do. All right. And now we're gonna do the bottom lash line. So I'm just gonna go back in with that light color. What is this called? Raw Sienna. Go underneath the lash line here. And then just like a teeny tiny little bit go in with that velvet right along the outer half of the lash line, just to add some smokiness and tie it into that outer corner. Okay. And then my trusty always have to do, I'm gonna go in with that darkest shade, which is Fired Earth. And I'm gonna take that on a small angled brush and just line the top lash line. Here's what look number 1 is so far. Just before I put on mascara, I'll do that after I do look number 2. I did get just a teeny tiny bit of fallout with that Fixed Earth shade, but not a lot at all. Just wanted to point it out. I really have to look to see it. I don't even think, normally I brush it off when I do mascara, but I think even now, like, I could brush it off and it would be fine. I have an itch there. Okay. Yeah, so not bad at all. Let's see what we can do with look number 2. Now I kind of want to use this one. I still think I like this metallic shade more than this rosy tone here, which is Lost Summer. But what do I want to do? I kind of just want to do the same thing, but just apply Lost Summer on top instead of bronzite and see the difference. I mean, I'm not really seeing much else I can do with this palette. So that's what we're gonna do. Go back in with Raw Sienna. We're gonna apply that all over the lid. Same technique here. Now that I have this shade laid down, we're gonna put Lost Summer all over the lid. I'm gonna, again, just use my finger with this metallic shade. Just tap, tap, tap everywhere. I guess we could use maybe, yeah, I'm not loving this shade. It's a very pretty shade. It's just not a me shade. So let's first, I'm just deciding what I want to do while I just continue to add more and more. Okay, I'm gonna go in with Deep Ochre to find the outer corner here, crease just a little. And then I think we're gonna take that top coat shade and just layer that on top too, because I'm just not loving how warm and red this is. I'm okay with the warmth of this because it's more brown, it's more just earthy. But I think like this is the kind of warm tone that I don't really like on myself. I'm gonna take that Ritual shade. I'm gonna first apply it in the middle, just see like spotlighting, but I might put it all over the lid if it's not too much. Yeah, I'm gonna put it all over the lid because it kind of just takes that Lost Summer shade down a little and doesn't make it so red. It kind of makes it a little bit more pinky now. And I like that much, much better. I feel like these two looks are now kind of the same, almost look the same, but that's okay. I'm gonna take the dark brown, line the top here. Lightly do the bottom lash line. Eyes are watering today. And then I'm gonna go back in with raw sienna and blend that out. Okay. Quick, easy. Like I said, these palettes are very fast to create eye looks with. So we have look number 1 here. We have look number 2. I am going to just clean up these outer corners a little bit, add some mascara, and then I'll show you the final looks. Here are the looks applied with mascara. Look number 1 and then look number 2. I'm gonna just apply my glasses here so you can see them with glasses. And you know, if if you didn't tell me, I don't think I would know that I have 2 completely different metallic shades on. Granted, I did use the same shades and just used a different metallic, but I think that the metallics don't stand out enough to be different. And I think that if I didn't tell people, they would think that my eye looks match. I don't think they look different enough. So let's see what we can do with look number 3. I'm going to take this one off and we're going to start that look. Third and final look. I think this is going to be even more simple. I'm going to just take this in the crease, maybe darken it up with these two and just add this top coat. What is this? Ritual. I need to really try and remember the names better. And just apply Ritual all over the lid. I kind of want to see how that works. First, I'm just going to go in with raw sienna all over the crease. I'm not going to apply it on my lid. I just want to kind of deepen up the crease and just recede it a little bit. And then we're just going to build on top of that. So now that I have this down, I really want to just see what Ritual does on its own and lay that all down. And if I need to reapply it afterwards, I can. But honestly, this is just like a really pretty, effortless kind of look. But I would also say you could easily also achieve this by just putting bronzer in the crease and then your highlight on top. Like you wouldn't have to just reach into this palette to specifically do this look. It's nothing special, but it is one that I do quite often. So yeah, we'll build this up just a little bit since I feel like you could do this with just bronzer highlight, not necessarily with this palette. So let's go in to that velvet. Just deepen it up even more. And then I'm gonna go into Fired Earth very lightly and deepen it up even more. I do really like this Fired Earth shade. I think it's very pretty and it blends beautifully. The seamless mattes just work better for me, I think. The velvets aren't bad. I just think that those are just shades you can't build too much on top of. So now that I have that, and I'm just using the same brush, by the way, I just am using my little color switch to kind of take the color off. I'm gonna go back in with Deep Ochre, just kind of go on top, not on top, but like where the line meets. Bring it up a little. Then go in with my biggest, fluffiest brush, take raw sienna, and try and blow it out a little. Okay. Then go back in with Ritual, and we're just gonna apply what kind of just came off when I was blending. And I don't think I want to do liner for this look. Maybe I will. Let's do the lower lash line. I think for lower lash line, I'm just going to go into raw ochre and call it a day. I am going to line my upper lash line, but I'm not going to use this to line my lower lash line. I'm liking how that's looking, but just to thicken up the lash line a little bit, I'm going to go in with Fired Earth and just lightly define. I think that looks so much better. You can see this was very fast to do. I'm gonna go off camera again, do the second eye, apply mascara. I'll be back to show you the completed look, and then we'll get into my final thoughts. I do have a little bit, so hang tight, I'll be back. Here we are, look number 3. Nothing groundbreaking, a very simple makeup look we've seen a million times, but I do think it looks quite nice. I don't know if it stands out, but I do like the look. So now I'm gonna scoot you back and we're gonna talk about my final thoughts. It's good and bad. So let's just get started. I'm trying to decide where I wanna start here. I think I'll just start by saying that I don't regret this purchase at all, whereas the Muse palette, I'm gonna probably compare a lot of my thoughts to the Muse palette because I find that these are kind of similar in color story, but the Muse palette I fully 100% regret purchasing. This is nice. I'm glad that I have it. I just don't think it's worth $68 for what you get. Now, the Vega palette, the Myth palette, I can't speak on the Sorcery because I haven't really dived into that palette yet, but the Vega and Myth, love. They stand out. You can create so many looks with them. Highly recommend those two palettes. Check out my reviews on those. But this one is just lackluster. It's not worth the price point, in my opinion. You probably have this a million times over. And the formula, to me, doesn't stand out. So this has 2 seamless mattes and 1 velvet. Now, some of her palettes have only velvets, no seamless mattes. So I do appreciate that this has some seamless mattes because I do like the seamless matte more than the velvet. The velvet, while it's very nice for a one and done or just apply all over the lid for sheer just matte color with your finger, it's very easy to use if you're using it in a very specific intended way. If you want to build the velvets on top of anything, it's very hard to do so. And that's just my only complaint. So on some of the other palettes, like the Muse, it only has velvets, no seamless mattes, and then it's a little bit harder. But the fact that you have this seamless matte and this seamless matte really does save it because now the velvet has something to almost kind of grip to and blend to. And I find it so much easier to work with the velvet formula when there's those seamless mattes in there. Now, let's just talk about fallout before I forget. I did get fallout from this shade here, the Fired Earth shade, but I only got it when I used my angle brush to line my eyes. When I used my blending brush to kind of just deepen up the outer corners, I didn't get fallout, and it was very easy to remove. It's nothing just too much where you can't just take a brush and brush it off. Not where I would say you have to do your eyes before your foundation, but there is fallout with this shade. Some of the seamless mattes, if you're applying it in a certain way, there is fallout. You just have to be careful you're not overpacking your brush with product to get it very opaque. You really, like if you're doing liner, you need to go slow and you need to build. Now, this has the 2 metallic shades and the 1 top coat. I love the top coat. I really like the top coat also in the Myth palette. Top coat is a great formula, but these metallic shades, just don't think they stand out on the eye. In pan, they look very much different, but as you saw, I used this bronzite in look 1, and then I used Lost Summer for look 2, and I really feel like those 2 looks just looked so similar that my boyfriend, he probably wouldn't have even noticed the difference between the two. He probably would have thought both my eye looks looked the same. That's how similar they are. So I wish that this just had a little bit more range, like the Vega, like the Myth. I feel like those are really great color stories for a 6-pan palette. This just isn't standing out. And yes, it's like a very basic palette, but I'm not feeling like that extra 10% specialness in this palette that I can't get from just another palette that's less expensive. Now, kind of just finishing this up, even though I don't really love this color story together, I do think these are essential shades in the Lisa Eldridge line, but I think that's gonna be only if you curate your own palette. Some of these shades, like this Raw Sienna, this is a great shade. It's not too warm. It is leaning warm, but it does have like a hint of neutral in it, where it's not just too much for me. I don't gravitate towards warm tones. So I love this shade on its own. If I was creating a palette, I would definitely put this shade in, definitely put this shade in, definitely put the Fired Earth in. It's just these three mostly that I'm not in love with. And all together, I don't feel like you can create multiple looks, whereas the other ones you can. So I think that these shades are essential. Just all together, I don't think this palette is worth it if you have a large collection of palettes. If you don't have a warm tone, just staple palette, this one's great. I think you can get other ones that are less expensive, that are equally good quality, but you spend your money how you want to spend it. That is not up to me. And that's really kind of my thoughts on this. Not good, not bad. If I was to rank them right now before talking about Sorcery, and I feel like Sorcery is really just in its own category, kind of just want to see how the formula is. Right now, like I would rank this 3 out of 4th place, so 3rd place out of the 4. And I don't hate it. I do really like it. And I want to just emphasize, like, I'm not someone who gravitates towards warm tone palettes. Modern Renaissance was not like a staple palette for me. I decluttered that palette and I never really even used it. So coming from someone who doesn't really love warm tones, I do like this palette and I'm glad that I have it. It's something that I will reach for and use. So I think that that's saying something. That's kind of where I'm just gonna end this though, talking about the Cinnabar palette. I hope these swatches and the eye looks were helpful. Leave me a comment down below if you're interested in this palette, if you picked it up, if you have same or similar or different thoughts than I do, if you're loving the other palettes more than this one, but I would love to know your thoughts just on the Lisa Eldridge palettes in general. And that's gonna do it for me today. I will see you all in my next video. Bye everyone.